Picture this. You check your phone and your portfolio is down. Not a little, a lot. The kind of red that makes your stomach drop a little, even if you've seen it before. Financial news is calling it a crash. Friends are texting about pulling their money out. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a question starts forming. What if this time really is different? Here's what almost nobody says out loud in that exact moment. Market drops like this aren't random, mysterious events. They have specific, identifiable causes, and once you actually understand them, they tend to feel a lot less terrifying. So let's break down exactly what happened in early June 2026, why it happened, and more importantly, what almost every similar moment in market history has taught us about what to do next. Most people's instinct during a market drop is the same. Figure out who or what to blame, and decide whether to get out before things get worse. The problem is that reacting emotionally to a crash without understanding its actual mechanics is one of the most reliable ways to turn a temporary paper loss into a permanent, real one. This particular sell-off wasn't caused by one single event. It was the result of several pressures hitting at the same time, which is actually fairly typical of how real corrections happen. They rarely come from nowhere. They come from multiple warning signs that were quietly building until something tips the balance. Understanding those specific causes matters because it lets you separate this is a real structural problem from this is a sharp, painful, but ultimately normal correction. Those are two very different situations that require two very different responses. So what actually happened? First, a major earnings disappointment in the semiconductor sector. One of the largest chip companies failed to raise its forward guidance the way the market expected, which cracked a narrative investors had been leaning on heavily. The assumption that AI-related chip demand would keep accelerating indefinitely. When that assumption got challenged, the reaction was severe. The Philadelphia Semiconductor Index posted its worst single-day drop since the COVID crash of March 2020. Second, a stronger than expected jobs report. This sounds like good news on the surface. More people working is generally a positive sign, but in the context of interest rates, a hot jobs report makes it less likely the Federal Reserve will cut rates soon, since a strong labor market reduces the urgency to stimulate the economy. Investors had been pricing in rate cuts, and that report pushed expectations further away, which rattled markets that had grown used to cheaper borrowing on the horizon. Third, a massive liquidity drain from a historic IPO. When a company goes public at an extremely large valuation, institutional investors often need to free up cash to participate, sometimes by selling existing holdings elsewhere. A mega IPO during this exact window meant a significant amount of capital was being pulled out of existing positions just to fund the new offering, adding extra selling pressure across the market. Fourth, geopolitical tension. Rising tension in the Middle East added a layer of uncertainty that pushed oil prices and bond yields higher, which historically tends to weigh on stock valuations, particularly for high-growth companies trading at elevated multiples. And fifth, a market that was already technically overbought. Heading into this drop, the S&P 500 had just finished a 9-week winning streak and was trading near some of its highest valuations on record. Markets that climb that fast, that consistently, often become more fragile, not because anything is fundamentally broken, but because there's less cushion to absorb bad news when it eventually arrives. Put together, an earnings miss, a hawkish jobs report, a liquidity squeeze, geopolitical stress, and an overextended market. 5 separate pressures hitting in the same narrow window. Here's the part that actually matters most, and it has nothing to do with predicting the next headline. Market corrections, even sharp ones, are a completely normal feature of investing, not a sign that the system is broken. Generally, drops of 10 to 20% are classified as corrections, and they happen fairly frequently. Drops of 20 to 40% are considered bear markets, and historically, these have occurred every few years, typically lasting around several months before recovery begins. Drops beyond 40% are rare full collapses, and even those throughout U.S. market history have eventually been followed by significant recoveries. The psychological trap almost everyone falls into is letting emotion dictate timing. When prices fall, fear takes over, and people sell to stop the bleeding, which actually locks in a real loss that didn't exist before they sold. When prices climb back up, greed takes over, and people buy back in at higher prices than they sold at. This cycle, selling low out of fear, buying high out of greed, is one of the most well-documented reasons individual investors underperform the very market they're invested in. There's also a subtle distinction worth understanding. Not every cause behind a sell-off is equally serious. An earnings miss in one sector is a company-specific or sector-specific issue. A liquidity squeeze from a single large IPO is typically temporary. Once that capital need is satisfied, the pressure tends to ease. Geopolitical tension can resolve faster than people expect, or it can drag on. The skill isn't predicting exactly which of these resolves and when. It's recognizing that a multi-cause sell-off, driven by overlapping short-term pressures, looks very different from a genuine structural collapse in the underlying economy. So what should you actually do with this information? First, before making any moves during a downturn, make sure your foundation is solid. That means having an emergency fund covering 3 to 6 months of expenses and no high-interest debt sitting above roughly 8%. Without that foundation, you genuinely may need to sell investments at a bad time out of necessity, which is different from selling out of fear. Second, if your foundation is already solid, understand that historically, periods of lower prices have rewarded investors who kept contributing, rather than those who paused. Nobody can reliably call the exact bottom of any sell-off, but consistent investing through a downturn, buying at lower prices simply because that's when your scheduled contribution happens to land, has tended to work out better than trying to time a perfect entry point. Third, resist the urge to check your portfolio constantly during volatile weeks. The data doesn't change because you're staring at it more often, and frequent checking strongly correlates with emotional decision-making. Fourth, diversify across more than just one sector or asset type. This particular sell-off hit semiconductor and tech-heavy portfolios especially hard. Investors with broader exposure across multiple sectors, and ideally across multiple asset types like bonds alongside stocks, generally experience a smoother ride through sector-specific shocks like this one. And fifth, separate the noise from the signal. Headlines are optimized to grab attention, not to inform your strategy. A sharp single-day move in one sector is meaningfully different from a broad, sustained decline across the entire economy. Learning to tell the difference is one of the most valuable skills a long-term investor can develop. Every market drop feels unprecedented while you're inside it. The headlines always sound a little more dramatic than the last time. The group chat always sounds a little more panicked. But step back far enough, and the pattern repeats with remarkable consistency. A handful of identifiable pressures build up. Something tips the balance, prices fall sharply, and then, assuming the underlying economy remains fundamentally intact, the market eventually finds its footing again. That doesn't mean every individual stock recovers. It doesn't mean there's zero risk. It means that reacting to a correction with the same panic the headlines are selling you is usually the most expensive mistake available in that moment. The investors who tend to do well aren't the ones who predicted this exact sell-off. They're the ones who built a plan steady enough to survive it without needing to. And that is a wrap on today's video. If this helped you make sense of what's actually happening in the market right now, hit the like button. It genuinely helps more people find this channel. And if you're not subscribed yet, tap subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a video. Every single week we break down another money topic just like this one. I'm Mark from Mark the Investors. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.